Welcome back to Patrick Christie's Tonight. Coming up, is Nigel Farage right to warn that mass migration is bringing sexist, sectarian politics to Britain? But first, Labour's VAT raid on private schools could be challenged in the courts if Sir Keir Starmer wins at the general election, with the Independent Schools Council, which represents more than 1,300 schools across the UK, considering legal action. Now, Starmer's plan to hike private school fees by 20% from day one of a Labour government has become one of his flagship policies. But it comes amid warnings that there are very few state school places available for parents looking to escape Labour's tax hike, with at least 8 local authorities now claiming that there are actually no spaces at all. There are also fears that the policy could end up costing the taxpayer more, with data from the Independent Schools Council revealing that 3,000 fewer pupils have joined private schools this year, and that, by the way, has cost the taxpayer a whopping £22 million. Now, given that 80% of fee-paying schools have said they'll have to reduce scholarships and bursaries if Labour win, questions have been raised as to whether or not the policy will actually widen inequalities. There are a lot more to this, and I'm very grateful to be joined by the former political secretary to Tony Blair, John McTernan. John, look, thank you very, very much. I mentioned some things there. I've got a couple of others here. A Treasury analysis last week has found that if the policy forced 100,000 pupils back into the state sector, it will require an extra $650 million from the taxpayer every year. Well, the latest is that actually apparently 250,000 pupils, there or thereabouts, could be dumped into the state sector. This is an economic disaster, isn't it?
They're just made up nonsense figures.
Why do you say that?
Because they were made up. One's made up by the lobby, the industry that support private schools, and the other one was made up by Tory special advisors. Those advisors should be, we should be looking for job opportunities, brushing up their CVs rather than making up numbers about the Labour Party policy.
I mean, so if I have a look at this, it's a new report says that Sir Keir Starmer's VAT plan will mean that 224,000 pupils could leave as a result of the plans. It's double the previous estimates. You just think we should not believe the numbers, yeah? We just shouldn't believe that.
I think we should just not believe the numbers. That's absolutely right. They're just nonsense.
Right. So your answer to this is that we should just not believe anything. What about the knock-on effect?
It's not an issue.
It's not an issue.
No.
All right. Do you think that our viewers and listeners will appreciate that, John? Is that what Labour? Because I'll tell you who it is an issue for. It is a very real issue for the people who are desperately wondering about what they're going to do with their kids. Are the 8 local authorities all making it up as well, John, saying they've got no school places? Are they all Tories? Are they?
No idea who these local authorities are, but the truth is the state system has capacity. It's grown in.
How can you say that when you don't know which local authorities?
Because the state system has grown in capacity since the 1900s. Every time there's been a boom in demography, they've been able to accommodate kids. The state system can accommodate all the kids who want to go to it, all the kids who need to go to it. And if, heaven forbid, every single private school went bankrupt next Wednesday, all the kids could be accommodated in the state system. They would do.
Okay, well, what evidence is there to... But, John, what evidence is there about that? You've come on so far and you've said don't believe the figures, some of them by the Adam Smith Institute as well. You've said don't believe the figures, okay? No. You've said also you've said don't believe the local authorities. All right. So can you now John? Can you do me and our viewers and our listeners the courtesy of explaining to us with some facts why you think that every single private school pupil could actually be accommodated into the state school system?
So how about naming the 8 local authorities? And secondly, how about dealing with the issue? There's no problem about putting VAT on school fees. School fees have been rising in real terms over the past decade. There's no problem about adding any price on top of that. It's a fair thing to do, and the money will be invested in state education. We know that there's loads of stories around about falling roles in schools, and there are falling roles in schools because there are fewer children being born every year. And that's
there are some knock-on effects, though, as well, John. The average price of a house within the catchment area of a state school rated outstanding is 13.2% higher than those at good inspectorates. Parents aren't stupid, are they? And if they've got a bit of money, which presumably in your world, everyone who sends their kids to private school is minted, so they probably would just move to that particular area. That could have a disastrous knock-on effect for the local housing market as well. I mean, is that something you consider? Okay. The other knock-on effect as well is that a lot of private schools are linked to local state schools and academies. And so what they do is they share resources with them, they also share courses with them, and sometimes during teacher shortages, they share teachers with them. That would disappear, wouldn't it? These knock-on effects, John.
So I'm just interested in what you're saying. You're saying it's a bad idea for house prices to go up. I'm sure that's your position. The house prices rising is a problem. I'm not sure that's agreed by all the people who are watching.
OK, John, I think you are being deliberately obtuse with us on this. And our viewers, the thing is, John, you are here as a former political secretary to Tony Blair. This is a flagship Labour policy. You've been presented with a tremendous opportunity here to sell this to a load of people who are really worried about it. And if you've chosen to come on and not answer any questions or provide any stats and be quite arrogant about the whole thing, that's entirely up to you. Why would you want to take people out of private education and put them at the mercy of the National Education Union, run by a bloke called Daniel Kebede, who attended a Marxist conference and called for intifada?
People who go to state schools are taught by the teachers in those schools.
They were part of the National Education Union, aren't they?
The National Education Union does not tell any teacher, including my son, how to teach or what to teach.
They have actually wanted to change the curriculum to decolonise it, so that's not quite true, is it, John?
Oh, sorry, decolonising the curriculum is a very good idea. We need to decolonise the entire country.
Yeah. OK, and it's this kind of stuff that I wonder whether or not people might be a bit worried about. So you're not worried about the idea of the state system being swamped. You disbelieve the figures. You're not worried about the local councils. You disbelieve them. You're not worried about the pupils being taught by a bloke or who runs a union which is Marxist and has called for intifada. And you're not worried about certain knock-on effects as well, such as house prices, etc. So we should all just not worry about this. It's a massive policy and no one should care about it.
The Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies have done an assessment on the tiny number of people, and they're independent. They've assessed the tiny number of people who might make the choice. But we know that over the past decade, with increasing fees in schools, there has been no fall off in the number of people going to the schools. So I'm perfectly happy to believe that you can raise the money, you can make the state system fairer by investing.
Did you go to a private school?
Of course I didn't.
Have you got a chip on your shoulder about that?
No, of course I don't. That's ridiculous.
All right. I just thought it was a relevant question. John, thank you very much. John McTernan there, who is the former political secretary to Tony Blair. Thank you very, very much.